Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I'm unboxing the Microsoft Surface Pro 11 for 2024. Now, today is the official launch date here in the US, June 18th, again, 2024. However, my pre-orders didn't get delivered, so I decided to just see what Best Buy had in stock, and here I've got the Sapphire half terabyte model. That'll set you back $1,500 US, and the Flex keyboard, unfortunately no pen option, $350 US. Expensive, no question, but worth it if this is what you're looking for. So let's talk about what Microsoft has officially done here in this 11th gen. As you can see, I've got the Sapphire model. You can tell by the blue box, no plastic packaging. What they've done is really added features I've been waiting for a long, long time. First and foremost, we now have an OLED display in this particular unit. It's only deployed with the Snapdragon Elite, the X Elite processor. If you go with the Plus version, which is the 10-core, that's the less expensive one, you'll get an IPS display. But if you step up to, again, the Snapdragon X Elite, you will be getting the OLED display. Size and resolution, all the same from previous generations, so nothing really new to talk about there. We've got 16 gigs of RAM on board. There is a 32 gig option that starts at $2,100, half terabyte. As I mentioned, NVMe on board. Would I have liked that to have been larger for $1,500? Absolutely. But look at that. Really nice packaging. Can't even get the whole thing in frame. It just opened up. I don't want to say like a shoebox, but that's kind of what it reminds me of. And there you see it. Now, because this is built around that Snapdragon X Elite processor, the promise is really simple. Microsoft, in my opinion, is not taking a shot at its vendors that license their operating system. All of those manufacturers are also making, I'll call them flagship products with the Snapdragon X Elite on board. HP, Lenovo, Asus, they've all got, even Dell, they've all got their variations. But Microsoft is clearly taking a shot at Apple. And I say that because the look of this device is unmatched in the industry. Microsoft does not have the constraints, like Apple, of being concerned that if they make a product like this and succeed, that they'll cannibalize another one of their products. Yes, they also make laptops. That's why if you don't want a tablet that can be a laptop, you'll buy the Surface laptop. But Apple, on the other hand, there's a reason there are no touchscreen computers from Apple, because the moment they do that, the iPad may suffer an immediate death. And I wouldn't, just as Apple wouldn't, want to take away from their cookie jar filled with money. So Microsoft doesn't have that constraint, and that is why a touchscreen device like this exists. It weighs, I think, a little under 32 ounces, and it has everything you're going to need to be the on-the-go warrior. But before we get into that, let's take a look at the rest of the contents of the box. We have our charger, magnetic connector. This is something Microsoft has been doing for many, many generations now. I don't even remember when it began. Seems like the brick got smaller, but very similar. This is not a reason to be investing in the new unit. Of course, the part that connects to your actual outlet, and I think that is pretty much it. I don't think there's anything else in this box except for whatever's in here. And what that really amounts to is that you do have a tablet that can do it all, but are you a power user? And I say that because when I earlier said that they're taking a shot at Apple, I am not mincing words. That is literally the entire premise of this product, and I'll power it on in a moment, but I'm going to open up this guy next. Wi-Fi 7 is on board here. Just thinking of other things that you need to be aware of. I personally would not go with the regular Plus model, simply because the pricing is so close. That starts at $1,000. The X Elite starts, I believe, at $1,200. So it's just too close in price for the performance difference, but more importantly, to get the OLED display. Beyond that, the webcams on this are the best I've seen in the business. 10.5 megapixels on the rear cam right there. At least the samples I've seen are really excellent. But let me go ahead and open this up. Again, $350 for the Surface Pro Flex cover, $450 with the pen. I would have preferred to have a pen. Again, the same packaging style, little shoebox opening. And you can use previous generations with this, but there are some improvements to be aware of. And the reason these mismatch, if it wasn't already apparent from what I said earlier, is that I just picked them up at Best Buy, as I stated. So no way to get a match going on here. It's whatever's in stock. And that's also an interesting indicator in terms of what colors Microsoft believes are going to be successful. So they're just showing you Pogo ports connect. But remember, this generation is the first where we can wirelessly use this with the Surface Pro. In other words, if you're in class taking notes or whatever it may be, you can have your kickstand popped out and just be working like this. The trackpad on this is no longer tactile, it's haptic, so you're not going to have to click in anymore. That's really the biggest thing other than the Bluetooth component, which I think is the most important part. Again, incredibly overpriced for what it is, but if this is the solution you've been waiting for, well, it's the only product that's going to be exactly what you're looking for. So before I peel this off, power button, volume controls, as you can see up here at the top. I'll try to bring that into focus for you as best as possible. Microphone array that are right around the Windows Hello IR capable camera that you'll see in a moment. Coming around to the side, we have the power port connector, kickstand on the back here. We have access to upgrade the NVMe if you choose to do so. No micro SD card slot. There hasn't been one for a while. And then we have our two Type-C ports. Okay, so they are Thunderbolt, or at least that's the indication. But it's going to be interesting to see how all of this actually performs. So let's go ahead and remove that. It's a really nice device. I mean, there's nothing that anyone can really question about that. It's kicking on. I'll bring the keyboard over. And the key here is that what we're getting, the two big improvements, again, are that now this can directly take on Apple products because you have an ARM processor. Of course, everything is still being emulated for x86, but guess what? That's what Apple does too. The reason that Apple has done what most would consider a better job of it is that Apple doesn't have to worry about the levels of compatibility that Windows does. Remember, the world runs on Windows, and then there are some people that use Apple computers. And that's not a knock against Apple, but because the market for Windows is so large, it is so much more difficult, and I'm certainly not making excuses for Microsoft, to wrangle that compatibility when it comes to emulation. Doesn't mean it can't be done, it just means it's going to take a lot more work and a lot more money. So I think that what most people are going to see with this is that you finally have Windows hardware that's going to cinch or put to bed the majority of the complaints about Windows hardware from average users when comparing it. Again, these are people that own MacBooks. And I think, as I stated earlier, for Apple users who wish they could have, a device that could merge their iPad and MacBook into one, this is it. It's a PC with keyboard when you need it, and it's a tablet when you don't. And then we have the AI, which is what's being featured here. And the reason I didn't lead with talking about the Copilot feature is that we don't really know how useful it's going to be yet. There's no question that it brings a lot to the table, but already one of the most compelling features has been removed at the time, at least of this video, the debut of this product. It's now reserved for the Insider program, which I'm a member of, so because it's just a little too creepy. And I'll probably do a separate video about the AI. And the Snapdragon X processor is the only one right now that Copilot AI actually supports. Intel and AMD support are coming later this year, so don't think this is an exclusive thing to this permanently. It's just a matter of this is what Microsoft developed for the Surface Pro, and so that's what we're getting. And that makes sense. I mean, if that's where the money went, that's where the money went. Now, one of my concerns with the Surface Pro, and this is without testing it or using it, really knowing what we're getting ourselves into, is that I do know that if this doesn't succeed, and this isn't what Microsoft is trying to realize, like it doesn't actually pull sales away from Apple and make people really consider why are they in the Apple ecosystem if better hardware exists outside of it and the software is there to match. This could be the end of the Surface Pro lineup, and I'm probably the only person that's going to throw that hat, that proverbial hat, into the ring here, because everyone else is just talking about, oh, I love it, it's amazing. Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, it's come a long way, but is this 11 years of evolution? Not in my opinion. I mean, the detachable keyboard, and this is going to seem like I'm kind of laying it on, but the detachable keyboard working in Bluetooth, I had that with my Vio Canvas Z back in 2015. All right. So the only reason I could come up with why Microsoft kept this, wireless keyboard functionality, let's do it right now, in their pocket so long, has to be, it may not work yet because I haven't paired up, it has to be clearly a product of, profit motive. Some will argue the reason that Microsoft really went to ARM architecture was not just to take a shot at Apple because of the cell phone-like properties that are now being brought to Windows, meaning, power efficiency, not ever having to worry about having cooling solutions, the thermals being in check as an extension of the smartphone world. You can easily make the argument it's again about profits. I mean, how much less expensive are these Snapdragon Elite chips, or I should just say X chips, versus their Intel counterparts or AMD counterparts? So I'm not here to figure out which it is, but what I do know is that every improvement that was made in this generation is significant, but also it's really only going to be significant, again, to people like Apple customers. And I say that because, as I've mentioned over and over, you're getting the best of both worlds, something that PC users have been, very much aware of for a long time. Battery life has always been the limiting factor. And if this is the device now to break through that barrier, it's a big deal. However, as good as x86 emulation has become, handling software, obviously, that's not designed to run on an ARM processor, there are inevitably going to be some walls we're going to hit with compatibility. I don't know what they are yet. We're going to find out. Do I still believe in Qualcomm in this space? I do now. When I covered the Surface Pro with the first Snapdragon processor ever launched, the Surface Pro X, I didn't believe in it. I knew it was a starting point, and I knew it was something that Microsoft shouldn't have been charging premiums on like it was a finished product, because it was completely an alpha product. That doesn't mean that it couldn't be sold. It just shouldn't have been marketed as a fully functioning product, in my opinion, because it stood to do more damage to the push to get to where we are now here in 2024 than helping that push to getting ARM inside Windows machines, in my opinion. Whether or not that ultimately was right or wrong, I'll leave up to you in the comments. But again, I maintain it did more damage than help, simply because look at how long it took to get this product. And if it lives up to all of the potential I've mentioned, again, that best-in-class battery life, having a form factor unlike anything else on the market, that's a big deal. I mean, it's 2024, and Apple still does not have the ability to unlock anything other than, their mobile devices, not their laptops, with facial recognition. Of course, the Surface Pro has had it for a while and still does here. But above and beyond that, again, I have concerns that if this product doesn't do really well, Microsoft doesn't need to keep it alive. I mean, it is a toy category for them. Remember, they have an array of different Surface products they make, the laptop, the Studio, the Surface Pro, but we saw how quickly something like the Duo disappeared. The Neo never happened. So 2 generations, and they were done with this thing. It didn't matter how nice the hardware was. I guess Apple users didn't buy it. Well, I don't know how many of anyone really bought it. But you have a lot of competing products in this space while we're still waiting for updates. And just to give an example, I'll move the Surface Pro over. And I don't know, maybe I'll end up editing this out. Maybe I won't. My acronym, which is my daily driver, I got this ahead of my surgery because I knew I needed the most performance possible in the smallest package on Earth. That's right here. And this has everything the Surface Pro doesn't, including some incredibly funky styling, right? But we've got an i9 processor in here, 13th gen chip, an RTX 4070, that's an NVIDIA GPU, and everything that this has, except for battery life and, of course, form factor. I mean, this is fairly thick, but it doesn't weigh that much more than this. Drink that in. Same kind of kickstand design as the Surface Pro. It has a good keyboard. It even has these wearable straps that you can easily remove in the event you're not going to use it in its briefcase mode or over your shoulder. But the reason I'm sharing this with you is that this is a really good example of why I don't feel that Windows users are going to run out to get this, because there are so many good PC options out there that maybe accomplish exactly what you're looking for, as opposed to what the Surface Pro 11 delivers. And I think it's realistic. I think Microsoft saw what happened with, well, folding devices like this guy, which is that Apple users here in the 5th generation, maybe in the 4th, really started to come over because they realized, hey, Samsung's been making folding phones now for 5 years. When the hell is Apple going to get their act together? PC users have another thing to consider, which, again, I'm specifically speaking to those of you who have the money to burn, clearly, because none of these are inexpensive. That acronym I just showed you retailed for $2,500. It can be upgraded, the NVMe drive. It has a micro SD card slot, things this doesn't have, but it also has a lot more horsepower. In comes something like this, the ThinkPad X1 Fold, the 16-inch edition. And I mean, if it wasn't enough, again, PC users actually have, a giant foldable that they can go with a 16-inch display. Now, granted, this is heavier. It's 4 pounds as opposed to the 2 and change that the Pro is. But this is another real thing to consider. For me, yes, battery life in the X1 Fold doesn't touch what is presumed to come out of the ARM architecture in the Surface Pro 11th Gen, but you have a 16-inch display, and even though it's a little bit thick, build quality is really good as I bang it into the Pro. The thing about this guy is that it fits in bags that a 16-inch laptop can't. I have a camera bag that was designed to carry a 12-inch tablet. This fits in it, which means now when I travel with that bag, I can have a 16-inch laptop in my bag where that would never be possible. So, food for thought. And what is the ThinkPad X1 going to be like when, the Qualcomm options start popping up for this? And they will come. This is driven by an Intel 12th Gen chip. It has pen support, which, by the way, I didn't mention. My acronym also has pen support. You're starting to see the trend. Windows users have a bevy of options when it comes to figuring out really good competing products for the Surface Pro 11, whereas Apple users, on the other hand, well, they don't really have any except for their iPad and, of course, their MacBook. And from what I've seen, forget what Microsoft has claimed, this comes really close to literally everything the MacBook does presently with Apple's own silicon. So knowing that Microsoft does not have the closed ecosystem that Apple has, but we're emulating, so that has an element of closed to it, right? Because not everything's going to be seamless. But if the majority of things out there are seamless, this is the product to beat in its space. Now, I personally, no matter how good this is going to be and how long I've waited for an OLED display, and by the way, Microsoft taking this long to roll out an OLED option reeks of Apple also. I mean, Apple was literally 10 years behind on display technology, but had convinced their users that they were still best in class. And I'm not saying Microsoft is trying to do that, but to give us an OLED display this late in the game, and granted, it's 120 hertz. I forgot to mention that at the beginning. Whoop-de-doo. This is not, it's an upgrade for someone like me who really generally wouldn't buy a laptop without an OLED display here in 2024. Granted, my acronym does not have an OLED display, but there's nothing that competes with the acronym on the planet. And even finding an acronym here in 2024, a year plus after it came out, is still nearly impossible. I think the acronym is selling for over $4,000 if you have one sealed in box. And if I wanted to sell it, I could easily get $3,000 for it tomorrow. That tells you a lot about how unique the acronym is and why I was willing to overlook that its 13.4-inch display, which is also high refresh, is not an OLED. And I would be willing to overlook that if somehow Microsoft rolled out a Surface Pro line that was really powerful. But in reality, what we've gotten here with the Pro 11 and this incredibly long update, and I should probably plug it in. Let's go ahead and plug it in with just a Type-C. What we've gotten, of course, is something that's incredibly powerful for being incredibly efficient. And that is where Apple, if I can hit the hole, so to speak, comes into play. I blame Apple for this. Apple's been marketing for years now, claiming that their products, this is only charging at 2 watts. That's not a great sign. Let's try the other port. Apple's been claiming for years, with all their synthetic BS, this is apparently the port to charge with, that they had the nerve to say like their new GPUs could stand up to NVIDIA's, 3090, 4090. That's all crap. Total crap. So I'm glad Microsoft didn't exactly do that, but they did play the game a bit because they started talking about how the Snapdragon X Elite 12-core processor inside of here blows away everything that Apple has. And I'm not sure that that's actually true. I also feel like that's a height contest in a room filled with little people because, performance on an emulated platform is like asking for, praying for rain. It's good that this is the best performance we've ever gotten with an x86 emulation experience, but that's not, and you're seeing my face as I say this, that's not something to brag about. It's only something you'd brag about if the competition is bragging about it. And that's exactly what Microsoft is doing because Apple has been bragging about that for literal years now. So I totally get the concept, but I do worry, as I mentioned, that this ultimately could go the way of the Duo, and I really hope this is not where things end because the Surface Pro, just a little history here, when it all began, the Surface Pro offered something no one else offered, which was a tablet PC experience in one. It could be a tablet or a full-blown computer, and it was also affordable. Now, of course, since the launch, 11 generations ago now, that changed, and pricing as it got popular skyrocketed. It went through the roof. And that was something, I didn't like to see happen, but inevitably, Microsoft figures out where their marketing dollars are going, who's actually buying these. And ultimately, they must have, obviously, through their marketing research, determined that the majority of the customers that are picking these up are Apple users who are tired of having to carry around an iPad and a MacBook. Totally get it. 2 products in one. That's exactly what I think Lenovo has hit out of the park with this guy because it is a 16-inch tablet, touchscreen tablet. But then if you need it to be a full-blown PC, of course, because it incorporates the Lenovo keyboard into it, you've literally got a legitimate keyboard on board, specifically a Lenovo one at that, best in class. And that's amazing. But it's all in pieces, it's the coolest product of its kind, but the fit and finish that needs to be there isn't, and keep your eyes peeled for my full review of the X1, but I would make the argument if you were looking for a tablet PC that was also a traditional laptop, the X1 Fold 16 is the best product of that kind. Big screen computer, can do it all, 32 gigs of RAM. And yeah, it's more expensive than this, but there's a reason. It's a folding computer. This is not. This is a design that's been around now for like 6 years, something like that. I mean, don't quote me literally. Feel free to correct me. Everyone will, even if I don't make mistakes. So that's what's really cool. I'm going to have to sign in here about the X1 Fold. But again, that fit and finish, it's just not there with the X1 Fold like it is with the Surface Pro. Now the pin is keyed in. And you're seeing what the actual, setup time is like. Brightness is a little too much. I'll be the first to tell you that. I'm just going to say yes to everything, even though it could be a little bit abrasive. And I'm going to go ahead and plug this back in again. See, that's the recall feature that I was talking about before, which they've already taken away. and now it's only an insider thing. I am an insider, so we'll see what ends up happening with that. I am going to skip this because, well, maybe. I mean, I don't think we really need to do that, but you can see we start cutting. We're just going to set it up as a new PC. Yes, I said set up as a new one, please. And now we're in the setup process. So really, is this right for you? I think that, if you're an executive, if you're a student, and as long as obviously you have the budget and you know that you don't need a computer that has a dedicated GPU, you're going to be totally fine. If, however, you file, and also you want pen support, touchscreen, I mean, that's a given. If, however, you need GPU capability, you need more horsepower, this is not money well spent, and this is a mistake. Years ago, that wasn't the case. When I say years ago, I mean like 8 years ago, because we were at the inception of tablet computing, and it was like, the Surface Pro was the most powerful of its kind until like the Vio Z Canvas came along, as far as I'm concerned. And don't get me wrong, there were other options, but finding one that could do it all really didn't exist until the acronym came along. And yeah, you can get the Asus Z13 in a non-acronym version. I'm just not sure you're going to like it that much. I mean, the styling is better for most of you than what this looks like, but the company that stands behind it is also really crucial, right? Here you're getting Microsoft, gorgeous display that I can finally now say something about. You're getting a Microsoft product. Go ahead and close that out. They're going to stand behind it. They're going to make it right if you have any kind of problem. Asus, on the other hand, kind of the complete opposite. And I'm not saying that from my own experience, but do a little bit of searching, and their quality control is hit or miss. Microsoft is generally excellent when it comes to both quality control and when it comes to customer service. Let's jump to YouTube and just check out a quick video sample just so we can see what that reads like, aka the quality. So I'm going to go ahead and go to 4K HDR, something this does support, of course. This is a test I often use. Let's go ahead and start with that. Hear the audio also here. And I'm going to make sure that our Res HDR is enabled on here. We're not going to watch this in 720p. We'll go to 4K, even though this is 2880 by, I think, 1980 or 1920 Res. Because of the aspect ratio, that's fine. Take a look and a listen. Trying to turn the mic towards it. Audio sounds good, I have to tell you. Let's go ahead and try to get this as glare-free as I can, which I can't, so I have another solution. Just kill the lights in the studio. And that's exactly what I'm going to do right now. It looks really good, though. Bring this back up. Still getting a shadow from me over here with this light. Let me go ahead and get rid of that as well. Inky blacks like you'd expect from an OLED? Absolutely. And apologies to anyone who's upset that I don't say OLED. Back in the day, I should have, instead of LCD, said LCD. I mean, yeah, it's a gorgeous display, folks. And I will just quickly stop that. We don't even have the backlight here on the keyboard, which is not super helpful. I believe it was right there. We go. I turned it on. Now, I don't know that you can see that, so let me raise the level. pretty good. I mean, it's light, pretty bright. I think that's, yeah, 3 stages. Stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. And I think it's good. So audio quality seems really good. Display quality seems really good. But let's check out one other video just for testing. See if we get the good old Costa Rica sample.
Switch to Chrome to protect.
And I'm going to go ahead and mute the music because we don't really need that. I'm going to skip the ad. This Costa Rica sample is always a winner. Again, HDR is enabled, and we're at 4K. Let's rock it, shall we? And I mean, OLED should have been on the Surface Pro years ago. No question about it. Let me bump up the brightness because now I'm starting to wonder. Yeah, I had the brightness very low there. Now the brightness is 100%. If I go ahead and take that to about 50%, I think that's going to look best for you. So I'm sorry on that first video test. Anyone that didn't make it this long, apologies. Screen's gorgeous. And I will reiterate, this is an upgrade that we should have had probably 5 years ago, but better late than never. But this, as I stated, does remind me a lot of an Apple move because, you know, it's so late to the party. But without it, the Surface Pro, I mean, long in the tooth is a compliment. So between the improvement in battery life, as I've stated throughout the course of this unboxing, one of the longest unboxings of my life, and probably yours. In addition to that, the per wattage performance off of the charger, which I will be testing, the removable keyboard because of Bluetooth capability, which, yes, I had nearly, it's now 9 years ago in my Vio Z Canvas, but we have it here, better late than never. I may title my whole review of the Surface Pro 11 better late than never. And it's not because that's an underwhelming thing. It's because these are all, in my opinion, I've said that maybe too many times, these are all improvements aimed at one group. It is a one-size-fits-all for Apple users to finally make the switch and retire their iPad, MacBook lives and get one machine that can do both. When you want, a touchscreen tablet that you can use a pen with, you have it. When you want a traditional 13-plus inch laptop with keyboard, you have it. And that's what the Surface Pro 11th Gen is all about. And I think it's smart. I think when we first saw Microsoft try to execute this, they had the right idea. They, just like I said, were a little too early on how they went about doing it, which was making consumers pay for it, which was not the best idea back when they launched the Surface Pro X. And that's likely why this generation, all of the Surface Pros are driven by Qualcomm chips. And look, Qualcomm pretty much runs the smartphone and tablet realm, and now we're on a pathway to them. I don't want to say running the PC realm, but definitely giving us different options than Intel that are more about per watt performance than overall performance. And it is just a great thing to have options. This is why I am a PC user through and through. So a lot to like here. Very cool product. Kudos to Microsoft on finally giving us an updated product that I think I'm going to be able to recommend to just about anyone that doesn't worry about cost effectiveness in their solution and is looking for really the nicest looking, best performing 2-in-1 computer ever made. And that's what the Surface Pro 11 stands to be, especially if you get the OLED version, OLED, versus the non, and get that Snapdragon X Elite as opposed to, the base, the 10-core model, which I don't think there is much of a difference between the 10 and 12-core, but we've been forced into the 12-core if you care about the screen, and by God, you should want the OLED if you're spending this kind of money. And I will say, shame on Microsoft that they did not make the OLED standard across the entire lineup starting at $1,000. But that rounds out my unboxing. This is still one of the coolest. We got a lot of different color options. This is just Microsoft kind of, as I said earlier, putting a bullet in it. We'll see how well it performs in all tasks, battery life, Photoshop, video editing, gaming. I'm going to do it all. I do know one thing. As I stated already here in the unboxing, this is definitely the best two-in-one of its kind in this form factor. Best cameras for video conferencing, and definitely right now the battery life champ. But when the Lenovo X12 detachable comes along with their Yoga, which I should be getting in for review soon, granted that Yoga is not a two-in-one like this, PC users are going to be able to get a lot of this capability for a lot less money if they're not married, again, to the tablet two-in-one removable keyboard design. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. Hit that like button. And as usual, please feel free to subscribe and please stay safe. Later.